Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Corn Sunday as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen from an act named JenJen titled Apollo 11 if I'm not mistaken. We're going to listen through his track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. We've also got lyrics here down the bottom, so let's go. Hang on a minute, I can put some lights on for this. There we go, I'm a little bit brighter now. That's all good. Fantastic ambience with the acoustics, the leads, and the drum parts. And even triangles. And it's just those little bits of panning around the sides of those atmospheric elements. There's those percussive bits with the really gentle, fragile vocal performance there that makes this track really alluring. Stereo delays. Interesting reverse guitar takes.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6.
And a little swoosh to kind of take you out of that environment where you're listening to that sample playback back to the main story. Because it finishes at 6, you're like, are we going to continue further with that? What's going on? I think that's the fuzziest guitar tone I think I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like they put several fuzz pedals in a row. Is that like the explosion of the Apollo 11 taking off? Fantastic rise of the falsetto with more of the fuzz. 8th and 16th on the rides. I assume there to be synthesizers, there'd be that kind of rising melody there before the pitch shifting. I think just before we move into the lyrics section, I think this is an incredibly well-written song. I am unsure if I have listened to JenJen before. I vaguely remember having listened to maybe one of her songs in the past, I'm not sure which, but I'm glad to have listened through this one, so thanks for that. We have lyrics here for JenJen's Apollo 11, kindly provided by Corn Sunday, so thank you for that. That bends like the moon, close your eyes, step into the endless darkness. I assume this is about space travel or something figurative to that. Step into the endless darkness, let the scattered starlight pilot for you, hiding but can't hide the sadness of what your lies have pulled light years apart. Tears converging on the Milky Way that surrounds me, pointing to the direction of my home. Death is the signal sent before rebirth. The Big Bang set off mankind's first cry. I think that's a wonderful lyric there. The Big Bang set off mankind's first cry. It's wonderfully poetic there, inferring that the start of the universe was the beginning of our noises, even if they were cries, you know. That eternal silence, it wasn't a dream. Okay, I get it. All right, so yeah, I get it. We're good. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to my review of this track from an act named JenJen titled Apollo 11. I think this track is about someone who is they're talking about space and the stars and everything like that, and the journey of Apollo 11 and everything like that. Forgive me, the moon landing? Yeah, Armstrong on the moon. I just needed to double check that I wasn't overly familiar with the actual craft that took them there. But I think that they're trying to compare the journey through space to get to a location, being guided by the stars, to their own life, trying to find those rare things in life that allow them to find a sense of direction. And when they talk about the effort and the journey and the trials and tribulations that Armstrong had getting to the moon, they're comparing that to their own life, that it is worthwhile making that trip, that journey through life, even if it's kind of painful, for that discovery, that excitement there, that achievement there, that conquest. I think that's the kind of angle we're going with here with this track, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the way it was sung from JenJen is phenomenal. They've got a great voice, they've got solid vocal technique, comfortable in their head and chest voice and their vocal range, but a lot of this track is also quite sensitive. It is very low key, it's quiet, it's fragile sounding, it's vulnerable. We're not trying to present a front of knowing everything or even necessarily knowing what we're doing for sure. We're discussing that a turmoil of going into the endless darkness and being guided by the lights and everything like that. Near the end, we start talking about, you know, Armstrong getting to the moon, the wounds being only temporary, you know, lonely and scared, I'm here with you. I suppose at the end, I just read through the lyrics there, we could also be talking about having found someone to be there with them. So basically that moon is being with that person that found their destination, their location there. And I think that that's potentially why there's more energy and intensity and a bit more kind of oomph to those last bits, because even though we weren't feeling as confident as we were later on, like we weren't feeling confident initially, should I say. Later on, when we found that location, that reason to be and to continue, we rise up with the sound of those fuzzy guitars, and it's emblematic, and it's also kind of anthemic. I really appreciate it. So I think the vocals make sense both in terms of how they were sung and the way that we expressed and emoted seems appropriate for lyrics, and I liked the vocal melodies well within it. There was also some harmonies potentially, but the main leads were in the center, and I think that's more than enough. We have a track at 4 minutes 51, which has quite a lot going on within it. Granted, it's not just verses and choruses, it also has instrumental sections as well as a gentle gradual compositional development throughout there. But I think that what I appreciate about this track is that despite the fact it takes a while to kick in with the full entire band, like I don't think the drums come in until halfway, you have guitars, quite a lot of it, clean guitars with strummed elements on the sides there accompanying the voice there, a few misty, wistful kind of lead elements later on the center, the bass kicking in to resolve with the root notes, and then the drums with the chord notes, and then you eventually get a chord note groove in the end with the kit, with the full kit there, as well as some interesting, like we had little triangle bits occasionally, little dings that were kind of pretty and harmonized neatly with the main melodies and other chordal parts. And the later sort of development of the fuzzy guitars there, the extreme fuzz on that lead part, there was a great interesting texture. It kind of sounded like an aircraft taking off there. And I liked that when JenJen rose with her voice near the end there, the last line or two, it rose with the sound of the fuzziness, inferring that, again, she is taken off on that journey that eventually to find the destination. It's always nice when music can communicate something similar to what the lyrics are doing. The flow of the track doesn't try to rush adding extra instruments to the mix. It infers a similar feeling throughout there, curiosity, I suppose, there, and introspection with the complexity of the tone of those chords initially. We've got some sevenths in there. There's not really, it's more of a minorish tone there, but a lot, the adding the sevenths in those chords relaxes the harmony to make it a bit more kind of palatable, even though we're feeling a bit unsure of things. Having a lack of percussion at the start, I think, makes it a bit more gentle as well, as if you kind of get that, even when the drum kit comes in the way it's played as well as mixed and produced, there's no rough edges to it. The only rough edges to this track come when the fuzz guitar, which is purposefully like really kind of gritty, comes in and just kind of smashes its way into the system. I think that is meant to be as abrupt as it is. I should also mention in regards to the structure of it, I appreciated when we had the sample of the people counting down with the Apollo 11 launch. For people like myself who don't speak, I assume this is potentially... is this Mandarin? I'm not sure what language it is, but either way, I think that it is... it's nice to have English parts so that I can understand it, even if I don't get the full context. But I think there's enough provided within the instrumental accompaniments to the verse and chorus parts, with a slight enough changes as we move forward to keep the track interesting throughout, with no filler whatsoever. The guitar parts, again, with the strumming, with the on the sides initially, with lead parts in the center, with even some reverse guitar takes later on in the piece there, but it's like an alt lead voice, but a sub layer to the main vocal parts. To the fuzz guitar later on, there's a lot of variety with the guitar bits, which I appreciate without kind of changing the mood of it too much. The bass parts when they kick in are relatively subdued, but that's to be expected in a track like this. You don't need them to be too raucous to be effective. The drums, as I mentioned, had a rather low-key tone to it. There weren't a lot of high-end resonance there. It was mostly kind of metered with the kick snares and cymbal patterns. And I think there was some synth parts as well, but later on, if I'm not mistaken, some extra sub-articulations there with maybe a lead or like a pad or something like that. I'm not quite sure. It could also be a heavily modulated guitar bit, as you can get away with that. But ultimately, I think the instrumental components in it made a lot of sense there. They amalgamated really neatly. The overall theme is one where I think it's one of hope. It's one of quiet hope and almost a sense of solitude initially, with those quiet guitars at the beginning, with the voice alone wanting to find their partner. Eventually, when things become a bit more intense with the fuzz guitars and the drums and everything gets a bit fuller, you know, there's more energy there, but it never really loses that sense of wonderment that comes from the relative complexity of some of those harmonies and the purpose of the tones in which they serve. The performance was nice and tight, and there was a chemistry between the elements. I mean, the studio recording and mixing and mastering as well was tight. I'm really happy with the way things were covered there. The voice sounded nice and clear in the mix. Lovely crispness to the way it was presented in regards to the frequency range and stuff like that. No weird resonant frequencies on any of the different instruments there. That was well handled between, again, the different guitar takes, the bass, drums, and any sort of synth, the little ting bell elements there. Things were nice and wide in the stereo field. There was some interesting kind of guitar delay. I forgot to mention this. There were some interesting atmospheric elements compositionally as well as in the studio. Like sometimes the percussive that go from the sides of the stereo field there and bounce backwards and forwards. And I think things like that where it kind of makes you feel, oh, that's exciting, what's happening, without messing too much with the main progressions and bass lines and stuff like that, are decorations and the icing on the cake. And I think they're really important to, again, maintain interest, especially if you've got if you've got a consistency, again, with those chord progressions, bass lines throughout the entire track. You're not having massive key changes or anything like that. As the song is over the 4-minute mark, you need to continue to add a bit of range there. But I think that, again, I liked the fact that we messed around with the automation and stereo delay of things there, and we used textures as well as notes and sounds. There was a lot of dynamic range there. Things were not the same loudness all the time. And it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled well. And yeah, and it just, in addition to the vocal parts, JenJen can just sing really well. It sounded like it was a raw take with a bit of reverb and stuff like that on it. It wasn't over-processed, and I have a lot of respect for that. You know, I always value it when people can sing, because this is my review of this track from an act named JenJen titled Apollo 11, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.